The hardest impact of COVID-19 was just the uncertainty of it all. We're very much a business that is built on someone coming in store. We didn't have at that time a big online profile. It was a very daunting time.
We had no idea that we were going to be closed at all. And when it hit, that was just a shock to everybody. We had to make some big changes.
We experienced a lot of setbacks due to some of our vendors not being able to provide us with the supplies that we needed, and we had issues with shipping, handling, as well as customer service. What kept us going during the pandemic is our customers and our community. They've been extremely supportive to us during the past year.
With the Comcast Rise program, we were selected to get a tech makeover, and that's going to help us implement new technology in the office so patients can check in quicker and faster, as well as easier.
The services that we've gotten through Comcast are going to propel our business by brand recognition, name recognition. We're from this community, so being able to kind of get our name out there, I think is something that Comcast has helped us out with immensely.
The services that are being offered to our company through the Comcast Rise program will help us create more content, be able to upload our videos a lot faster, and with the tech makeover, we'll be able to have the new equipment as well as the internet bandwidth to run our videos the way that we need to and to handle our customer service a lot more efficiently. This program will actually help me scale my company so that I can go to greater heights that I normally wouldn't reach.
I'm honored to be a Comcast Rise recipient.
Thanks, Comcast.
Together we rise.
Hello, I'm Derrick, Seaver, President and CEO of the San Jose Chamber of Commerce, and we are really excited to be joined for a conversation with one of our region's great leaders, K.R. Schroeder, who is the founder and CEO of Bloom Energy. So for the members of the Chamber who are not familiar with K.R., K.R. is here at Bloom, but prior to that, he was the director of the Space Technologies Laboratory at the University of Arizona, where he was also a professor of aerospace and mechanical engineering. K.R. has served as an advisor to NASA and has led major consortia of industry, academia, and national labs. As one of the early pioneers in green tech, K.R. also serves as a strategic limited partner at Kleiner, Perkins, Caulfield, and Byers, and as a special advisor to New Enterprise Associates. K.R. received his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering with honors from the University of Madras in India, as well as his master's degree in nuclear engineering and a PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. K.R., it's a real pleasure to meet you and to speak with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Derrick, it's a real pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. We're really excited you can join us. And I know our members have a lot of interest in the work going on here at Bloom. And so really I wanted to start the conversation by asking you, Bloom has an incredible story. And I was really hoping that you could tell us that story, but with a particular focus on a statement you made that shortly after founding the company in 2001, you and your co-founders thought, and I think this was the direct quote, "We want to move to Silicon Valley." So here in San Jose, I think there's a lot of interest in knowing why Silicon Valley, why San Jose, why was that decision made?
You know, the very famous bank robber was asked, why do you rob banks? And he said, that's where the money is, right? So Silicon Valley, if you are thinking of disrupting an old industry with a new business model, and create better opportunities for everybody on the planet, what better place to be than Silicon Valley? What Florence was to the Renaissance period and the artists. Why would you want to be an artist in the world and not be in Florence if it was the Renaissance time? Why would you want to be an entrepreneur and not be in Silicon Valley during this time? It was as simple as that for us. This is where people think differently and think anything is possible.
No, that's fair, and I think that's an exciting thing to hear, particularly with the background that you all have coming here. And really our next question kind of leads right after that and saying, that was the world that you experienced in 2001 with your co-founders, but there are challenges to this region's prominence, and I think, your background kind of sits in an interesting nexus to that, particularly with the recruitment of talent and the bringing in. So what would you share from your perspective, do you think are the challenges to our area's prominence in the position that you just detailed, and how are you looking at addressing those things going forward?
That's a great question, Derrick. And the reality is, when we take our preeminence, our leadership, whether it's a company, whether it's a region, whether it's a country, whether it's a group of people, when we take that for granted, that's when our downfall starts, right? So as amazing as Silicon Valley is, we should be saying that the rest of the world is not standing still. They all are looking at this and saying, how do we create even a better model to disrupt the disruptors, right? And become that disruptor themselves. So what are we doing? And we have structural things that we need to do to keep this place the way it was in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, and from that perspective, where do you think those major challenges are coming from? Where do you, like, if you were to kind of look at one, what would you say is at the top of that list?
You would start with the affordability and the ease with which people can live out here. To get a young family to move to Silicon Valley compared to other places in the world, given the cost of living, the housing, the transportation. Those things that we need to fix as we go forward. The second thing is also it needs to be inclusive in an age today for the generation of employees that are coming along. It is about the equity that you create across a wide spectrum as opposed to just wealth creation. It is about job creation in a very sustainable way. And that means manufacturing jobs. That means jobs for people who are good in their trades. That means it's manufacturing jobs. And creating those kind of companies brings us back to the national semiconductor days of Silicon Valley, where we would manufacture things, right? How do we bring that back? We can, but it's going to take creativity. It's going to take a willingness of local policy, state policy, to enable that and ease of doing business.
Yeah, to get us back to the original days, and I really appreciate that approach. You mentioned it earlier about Bloom's place as a disruptive industry, and I think you also just referenced some of the issues coming up with income inequality and disruption. How does Bloom answer the question about the disruption of jobs in the traditional energy industry, if you will, and its place kind of pushing that envelope forward, and how is the outlook on what that disruption looks like in that field?
So for us, right, we see the energy industry actually, when we disrupt it the way we think we should disrupt it, which is clean, reliable, affordable energy for everyone on the planet. That's our mission statement. If that's our definition of disruption, when we are successful doing that, the world will have abundance of energy. What does that mean? That means energy is the capacity to do work. I don't know of any country that's energy rich and economically not rich. I don't know of any country that's energy poor and economically rich. So energy abundance lifts all boats. It's an enabler for everything else people want to do. So if we can do that, it'll be the equivalent of the PC industry disrupting the mainframe industry. Did we create net more jobs or less jobs from the mainframe to what we did? We believe that as we are successful in our mission, we will create enormously more jobs in the area of energy and everything else it enables. So we see ourselves as job creators, not job disruptors.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's an exciting future. And I'm going to go kind of a little bit out of order, just because I think you referenced a little bit in the last statement. The Chamber was really honored to give Bloom the Investment Award this evening for the investments that you all have made here in 2021, and one of the biggest investments was in those manufacturing jobs that you referenced, that net job creator space. And I think there's this image of manufacturing as a steel worker in the Midwest, but that obviously isn't the manufacturing jobs of the future. And so it would just be interesting to hear your outlook on what do those manufacturing jobs look like? When you say manufacturing, what is it that Bloom is talking about?
That's a great question, and thank you for the honor. We feel very honored and humbled to receive the award. When it comes to jobs and manufacturing jobs, the way we think about it is if you are high school trained and you have a willingness to learn and a willingness to work hard, there must be an opportunity for you to make things. After all, even in this digital world where everything goes digital, we use things. These things have to be manufactured. And if COVID taught us one thing, self-reliancy is important for critical things. We cannot depend on some foreign country 8,000 miles away supplying us that lifeline. We need self-reliance. People need to become self-reliant. The essential worker became the hero, right? Yep. We don't know their name, we don't know their faces, many of us. We should.
Always there.
Because they are the ones that facilitated everything. So we felt very proud of our employee base all along, but I think we were able to showcase them to the world when we said, you know, there's a local company that knows how to fix ventilators, right? And we can do it and we can save local lives. That's self-reliance. It's so important. It's something that we have ignored as a society in this country. It's time to bring it back. So we're proud of our tradition, and we want to grow it, and we want to keep those jobs in this country because it's about job creation and wealth creation, not just wealth creation. That's where the equity comes.
Yeah, it's a great message that I hope that a lot of the country hears, particularly at this time. I know you spent time in the Midwest and school, and I grew up there, and I think those are the parts of the country that you hope that message spreads, because it's a hopeful message. You referenced earlier some of the challenges that our area faced and affordability and other spaces, and the Chamber is also an advocacy organization really at its heart. And so I think a lot of our members would be interested in just your advice to other business leaders who are working with government, right? And how Bloom interacts with government and how you navigate that world, often in a field that you're ahead of government on in a lot of ways.
We have to invest. We have to invest our time in understanding policy and politics and knowing what motivates it and educating them on where we see the future going. Because as a rule, you would expect us to be ahead of where policy is. And policy has to play catch up, right? And if we don't get that balance right, it can lead to some really bad outcomes either for the business or for the society. And we're seeing that, right? And it's a constant struggle. And as the pace of technology improves, continues to improve and get faster, the need for policy to keep up is paramount. And we as technologists, we as business leaders have an obligation to bring our policymakers with us as we go, and working together, I think we can do better than if we work against each other.
And have you found California particularly to be a place where that's possible? It seems like we have a lot of very forward-thinking policymakers here.
Well, we have it both ways, right? It is no surprise to anybody listening, to us speak now on like digital media, that most people would say California is one of the hardest places to do business.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's no need to sugarcoat that, right? At the same time, California has been the birthplace and has enabled so many new technologies to happen, right? So we have a little bit of both. And how do we balance that? And the part that I would say that we need to focus on is when we make doing business harder, those businesses move away from the state, thereby disenfranchising the manufacturing employees and other kind of employees. So we need a more thoughtful policy, of an inclusive policy that allows people like us operating in the state to want to grow in this state as opposed to somewhere else.
Absolutely, yeah, it's an interesting paradox that California creates, for sure. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. We really, first, thank you again for your time in the conversation this evening, and we wanted to close on this question. In preparing for this conversation, we watched a presentation that you gave at the University of California, San Francisco, where you said this about the most valuable piece of advice you received from a mentor. You said, and I think we got this right, they taught me to be rigorous in thinking. The folks that are going to be listening to this conversation are a group of entrepreneurs, right, and business leaders. And we wanted to close by asking you if you could discuss that lesson a little bit and what its application would be for innovators really of all shapes and sizes here in San Jose and the Valley.
Sure. So this is my PhD advisor, and he really taught me the details matter. The rigorousness of the thought process matters. Because many times, especially now in the Valley, ideas are sexy, right? Ideas are always sexy. But making them become real is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's where the rigor comes. That's where the resilience comes. That's where the wanting to see it through comes. And it is very easy to put these sexy ideas, take it to a level that will not sustain, and transfer wealth. It's not even creating wealth, it's transferring wealth. And some people get rich and some people get left holding the bag, right? That's not creating jobs. That's not creating, creating long-term good. Right. It is the rigor that takes that sexy idea and makes the world a better place. So the gap, the leap from the great idea to a great impact is the rigor that goes in between. If you're a true entrepreneur, that entrepreneurship is about making change, making impact, and you need the rigor.
A great example of it here at Bloom. Kara, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your expertise with us and our members this evening. And really, on behalf of all of our members, we just want to thank you, congratulate Bloom again on the award this evening.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you.